Okie doke. So, there. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If I can mute that. There we go. Okay, perfect. Just before we begin, if you didn't mind an indulgence from the chair, I just wanted to provide a few quick comments from the chair. First of all, we had a great AGM at Council last week, or at SPPC. I want to thank Andrea very much for your presentation. It was fantastic, and thanks to the members of senior administration for everything that you and your teams did to feed into it. It was very successful and very well received, so thanks for that. The other thing, too, is congratulations on a great restart to the office on Monday. It's nice to see everything starting up again with the COVID situation that we've been under, so thanks for all the work behind that. With that, we'll do go to the recognition of the Indigenous Peoples and Land Statement. So we'd like to begin by acknowledging the treaty territory of the Anishinaabe, which defined within the pre-Confederation Treaty now known as the London Township Treaty of 1796. Throughout time, this region has also become the current home of the Haudenosaunee and the Lenni Lenape nations. Okay, so is there anything that anyone would like to add to the agenda or any alterations to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to accept the agenda? Mr. Milton, seconded by Ms. Anderson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest that anyone would like to make? Seeing none, we'll move on from that. The minutes from the previous meeting, is there any comments from the minutes that anyone has? Seeing that? No? Ms. Wilcox?
Page 3 of the agenda, there are minor typos not in the brief.
Perfect. So we'll get that corrected then. Given that that's a technical matter, I don't think we have to amend. That's right. All right. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes then? Ms. Anderson, seconded by Ms. Wilcox. Any objection? It's deemed carried then. All right. Communications. I'm not aware of any communications that have been received. I don't know if anyone has anything to bring forward at this time.
We got one today from the city manager. It's the resolution from the...
Okay. All right, great. And do we normally formally receive these then at the meeting, or just?
Yes.
Okay.
Typically, if it's sent before the board package goes out, I include it with the board package, but if it
Okay.
comes kind of in the intermediate time, it's delivered at the meeting.
Okay. All right, so is there any, could I have a motion then to receive the communication from the City of London regarding the AGM? Ms. Wilcox, seconded by Mr. Melson. All those in favor? Opposed? Deemed carried. Great, thank you, Mr. Paget. Delegation, I'm not aware of any delegations, they're not on the agenda, so we'll move on from there. Mr. Paget has separated out our agenda for us after our discussion after the last meeting to a consent agenda and also then further reports and businesses. So with the consent agenda, what I'd suggest is that if there's anything any of the members would like to pull for discussion, we do so at this time. If not, we'll take an omnibus motion for the items. When the motion's made, we'll accept any questions for the items as well that are part of the omnibus motion. So, is there anything anyone would like pulled to vote on separately? Okay, could I get a motion then to accept items A through F? Ms. Anderson, the seconder. Ms. Wilcox, is there any discussion or questions? Mr. Wilson.
Through the chair, I'm not quite sure exactly, but this question is with respect to, I have a number of them actually, not a number, but a few of them.
Yep.
This was with respect to report number 32. And it's got to do with, this is the KPIs, and it's just really a question with respect to the appendix A. On page 13, there's a property service KPI metrics, and it's in the work order aspect, so it's the first 4 lines, basically. I'm just kind of wondering the difference between the carry forward and ending balance. And the reason I'm asking this is just because I would have figured that the ending balance of March would have been the opening balance or the carry forward of April, and it's different, and I was just curious why that might be.
Mr. Van Velde, are you able to answer that question?
I'm going to try. That's an excellent point, and I only just noticed it, and I'm afraid that I don't have a concrete answer for you. What I can commit to is that I come back to you with reasoning and or adjustments. That's okay with you.
It's fine with me, yeah, I was just kind of, they should be the same, I would think, just
Yeah.
kind of like a... But.
Ms. Jones?
Yes, respectfully through the chair.
Yep.
I did speak to our data analyst today about this very point.
Okay.
And what I learned from him was that there is sometimes a day or 2 lag in the entry of the completion status. So where the month-end number is run, say, on the 30th, it may, and we collect that data, we may have 1 or 2 work orders that are marked completed on the 1st or 2nd of the following month. And so that, the discrepancy may just be a handful of work orders, and that is the lag in getting them reported, typically because we're hearing from our vendors a day or so after they've completed that work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. This one just seems like a significant difference. It's almost, I don't know, 800 work orders?
Yeah, so that's not my input.
So it just seems like I mean, kind of like a financial month end, you wouldn't put those work orders, you'd just throw them in the other, so it just balances. Just the accounting in me doesn't seem to balance, so I'm kind of like, what happened to this?
So perhaps we could get some clarification on that, then that would be greatly appreciated. Okay. Anything further for the consent items? Before Mr. Milson, we'll look to Ms. Wilcox.
I was going to comment on this report as well with regards to the KPIs. I think the format is very helpful, so thank you for putting that together. I wondered too, just to build on previous comment, that it may be helpful to almost have a data dictionary that accompanies it, so that when someone is looking through these and seeking to understand what it is that measures, numerator, denominator, all those types of things, for consideration, that might be helpful.
That's a good point.
Sorry, I wanted to add, we are intending to bring forward sort of a discussion, potentially if we're looking at maybe a committee of the whole meeting next month.
Great.
Around KPIs and what that might look like. We, at this point, these are old indicators that were selected by the previous board, and we're not necessarily sure that all of them are really as relevant as you might want to see. So I think that the intention is to come forward with some suggestions too about more pertinent KPI, so it's on the radar for next month for sure.
And through the chair, to add to the CEO's comments, the plan that we'd like to present involves 3 layers. The first layer is that adding and removing KPIs as we see fit, but also with a level of engagement by the board and from the board. The second piece is something we will refer to as a data audit. Is the data that we're seeing, the actual data, has never been verified since we started the KPI program, which is fairly new still. And the last part is we're going to create a data integrity standard. So if we submit data on behalf of this organization, whether it's financial data or data related to our vacancies, it has to follow this criteria, which is also in alignment with our current operating system and insights technology that's active. So we're really looking forward to moving this into more of a robust space with some significant alignment with the board and where the board wants to see that go. So we're really excited to have this discussion.
Yeah, that's great. Any comments on that? Any further comments or questions related to the consent items? Mr. Milson?
Yep. Chair, one other, so on report number 34, page 19 of 43, I just have a question, perhaps through to Nick. Is these energy rebates, are they like a one-time rebate due to the retrofitting, and that's kind of, okay. Kind of like the same programs they have for water utilities or whatever. If you put these low flush toilets in, you can have a $10 rebate from your next bill type thing.
Good chair. I'm not familiar with those programs.
Oh, I just
like
that.
It's not similar. But yeah.
Okay.
And we're not expecting any other rebates regarding the SHAPE project or projects of this nature.
Okay.
This is really where
Question I had too.
where it is at today.
And Chair, no more questions for you.
Okay. Fair enough. I think the one I had was about the rebates and about further rebates, so that was very helpful. And I think it's also very beneficial. We're able to then free up, as I see through other reports, free up money to be spending on security and painting. So that's wonderful to see too. So, any other further questions, comments? I just wanted to highlight one thing with the vacancy management report. I think it's great that we're below the 2% target we're trying to achieve for rental stock that's in progress, basically the work that's being completed for units. So well done, and thank you for that. All right, I think we have a motion, a mover and a seconder then for that.
Yes.
All right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the consent items? Opposed? They are deemed carried. Okay, so we'll move on to reports and businesses, or business. I think I'll turn things over then to Ms. Grin for the Tenant Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Through the chair, in 2019, the Board of Directors asked staff to create a tenant advisory council to incorporate tenants' thoughts into board decision-making and LMCH strategic planning. So a draft of the terms of reference is attached with the staff report for your review.
Perfect, okay. Questions for Ms. Grin on this matter? Seeing none.
Oh, through the chair, I have a number of them. So,
yep.
Just give me a second here. All right. So I see that this is somewhat of like a tenant advisory council. There's just some little wording kind of thing, like a report structure. I think that should just say the tenant advisory council as opposed to council reports. Just small things, I guess. In the role component there, just wanted to clarify, is it staff's intent to have the work plan developed by the committee and approved by the committee, as opposed to submitted to the board for approval or to the staff for approval? That's kind of one question I have.
That's good.
So the intent really for staff first to create work plan. It will be presented to you, and then it will go to the tenant advisory council.
I see. And just I guess I wouldn't use the word findings in that paragraph that says for the role of the council. It says that the TAC will create a work plan to achieve the identified goals. Thank you for the clarification of who identifies those in the coming from the strategic plan, and report their findings. I wondered, like a different word, like progress maybe, because I think it's really, you're asking them to report back a progress report, so to speak, to SLT and board of directors. And that's kind of where my clarity, I'd like to seek clarity around that. Who's the TAC reporting through to? It just seems, is it staff or is it board, or is it truly is both? What's the kind of the intent? So I said a little note here that I just wasn't clear myself who this TAC would be reporting to, just to make sure that the reporting is clear when they start doing their work.
That's good.
So thank you for that question. I think the intent initially was a little bit of both, and depending on which particular area they are involved in. Do you have a preference for who you would like to see this council report to?
Mr. Mills?
I think if this is an advisory council to the staff, then they should report to the staff. If it's an advisory council to the board, it could come through staff and make a recommendation to the board, I guess. I didn't really perceive that question coming, but typically, what we do in council, I think, is they report through to the council, so the board. I guess that's what I would expect. Yeah.
And if I may too, like, it depends on whether it's seeking input on policy-related matters or operational-related matters, right? So, further questions, Ms. Anderson?
I have similar questions, so it wasn't clear to me reading it. Like, the responsibilities are set out, but will it be largely staff seeking input from TAC, or will it be TAC identifying issues that they want to either raise with the board or with staff, or will someone on the staff level be coordinating like a more detailed work plan, I guess, of what they're expected to be involved in and what they may or won't be invited to bring to the table?
So yes, I think what we initially wanted to do is to have staff involved to actually create this committee, get it council, get it started, and then give the power to this council to actually do the work based on the work plan and then report to the board. As part of the strategic plan, right, they would still be reporting to the board their findings, their feedback, so you would still be getting all that information.
And just to follow up, it's just not clear to me what the work is when you say the work. Like, will they be identifying issues, or will they be asked to comment on questions that staff have for them?
Or a bit of both. A bit of both, and mainly they will be providing feedback and guiding us as to how this work will be taking place. We have a lot of plans on the go with the strategic plan, so we really want to see the tenant feedback and their lens to see how we can implement it.
And just one more minor comment, I think similar to what John identified, that it flips between TAC and council, but I think consistently TAC is probably a better way.
questions on this item? Smith?
To the chair, to Ms. Green. In the responsibility section, number 8, I got a question around number 8 and number 9, but number 8 specifically, my question is, what's the purpose of that number 8? Like, respond to and ask questions to the board of directors. Are they going to be like coming to the meeting and then we're expected to answer questions from them? Is that, like, I'm not quite sure what that number 8 is meant to be.
We can certainly remove this item. This was a proposed draft, so we try to incorporate as much as possible to have this open communication.
Right.
So if this was done, we can just remove.
No, I just really it kind of just tweaked my thinking around what is the relationship between TAC and the board? Are they coming to ask us questions, or are they here for us to ask questions and clarification on their progress report? Maybe they have it like I understand they may be reporting through to us on a bi-week or biannually, so twice progress on their work plan towards their work plan. So I just I didn't understand number 8, and I was just really, because it's really kind of odd to me that they can ask questions to the board of directors. It's not typically something that, unless they ask permission in advance and have delegation status, make a presentation. It just seems, I guess I'm just trying to struggle with what's our relationship with this TAC, and maybe. So I guess it's just kind of comes to the clarity of what their reporting potentially role is, and I can understand the need for a tenant advisory just to help communicate policies and various different directions, strategic plan items that the board is trying to achieve. I think it's great. I think the idea of having a TAC is a really good one. It's just asked a number of questions for me, just kind of around what the relationship of them reporting into us, I just had fears, not fears, but just had kind of things like, oh, they're going to come and start asking me questions I have no answers to, and things like that. But, oh my God. So I don't know if you want it deleted, but.
Sir, Ms. Kenzie.
Sorry, just through you, Mr. Chair. What we'll do is we'll take this draft back and
Okay.
we'll do a little bit more work on it and a little bit more clarification about roles, and because your point is well made, right? It's not traditional that anybody is welcome to a meeting to just start asking questions of the board. If it's because they're coming to present their findings, it would make sense if there's an open discussion. But on a regular basis, it wouldn't make sense if they were coming to question the board directly. Most of those questions would be operationally based and should be coming through to senior leadership. So we'll take this back and we'll do a little bit of clarification, I think, before we ask you to do.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilcox.
Through the chair, I think the TAG is incredibly important, and having tenant perspective on the policy or aspects of the strategic plan, et cetera, is incredibly important. I think equally so will be clarity as you go through recruitment for this, clarity of what that role will be for individuals who wish to participate will be really helpful. I think clarity around where that reporting function is and this will similar to the concept of the I think that'll help and strengthen the general plan.
Further questions, comments?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Don't say unfortunately. You're a member of the board, eh?
Yeah.
So
Well,
ask those
this is new
questions.
to me, So also reading through the terms of reference, I got the impression that so there's an application process that's going on. There's 50 applicants. You're looking at a process of potentially finding a way to continue reviewing those applications and making those appointments, so to speak. But it sounds to me like once this TAC is in place, any vacancies, it's the TAC that approves more members, like those new memberships coming in. Is that like so? I'm a little concerned that staff may not have enough oversight of who's actually going on this committee, and I think I'm just a little concerned about it becoming a committee that's, if you get just where I'm going, if there's a group on there and they want to, other certain members on there too, I think it could lose control. There's potential of losing control of the ownership or of the membership, because it sounds to me like the TAC committee that's left is going to appoint newer TAC members and things like that. So I just don't know if you have enough oversight. So it's maybe something you can take back and think about how you want to fit it. Yeah. And the other piece to think about, I think, is maybe potentially having a staff member as a co-chair or something like that. I understand from the reference that they're going to have resources available to them, potentially support of SLT and staff. So they're going to have some, staff. What's that look like in terms of, are they going to be now telling your staff kind of how to, I don't know, what's that look like? I was kind of interested in see how staff might support their work. But I know they're going to have access to staff that way to make their work move forward. And I don't know if you want to think about as well in the meetings component. It's just, I don't know if you want to tighten it up or not. Pretty much the council can meet as needed in order to best be prepared. I don't know if that means if there's a minimum number of meetings you want to have a month, or could they meet every day? It seems kind of open that way. And when there's remuneration, you just want to be careful that the meetings may be set by a schedule or a staff, and then there's a process to have extra meetings just to control, I guess, the costs, if you will. And through the chair, my last question or comment might be just around, there seems to be an honorarium, which I don't have a problem with. It's just, is it in the budget? Because potentially max of 13 times 50, each meeting might be $650. And if you had 10 meetings a month, that's you can just do the math. I just wanted some structure around the meetings and who calls them, and I think that would be very wise to control those costs. Because I also noted here, and it's a little bit open, is around reducing barriers to attendance, and totally understand that. You have a county member that potentially might need to come into London for a meeting. So maybe some standards or barriers like around that. Like, do they Uber it in? What's the kind of allotment kind of thing just to consider when maybe this comes back. So if that would be if this would be very helpful, this kind of comments, I'd make a recommendation to have staff take this back and take these comments and revise them, or make a revision for our approval. Is that helpful?
Yes, we've got a motion then to refer to staff for further review to return to a future meeting. Seconder for that motion?
Oh,
yeah, we'll just put that on the floor and then seconder for the referral. Comments?
Great, thank you. Through you, to staff, just kind of again picking up on those comments with respect to tightening it up a bit. I think if I read this correctly, just TAC will create the work plan. I'm wondering if staff want to approve the work plan, or if the board wants to review the work plan, or because I think right now the work plan will be developed, findings will be reported, but we might, either staff or the board, have some interest in seeing the work plan. So if that's something to consider.
Anything further? So I just want to actually build on Mr. Milson's. Actually, I'm going to frame it as a question about the cost of the meeting. I'm just wondering if it is budgeted for, if we can get some elaboration on that.
In the zero-based budgeting process, community engagement and attendance services, they looked at this specifically, and we did very basic cost analysis of the similar math that Mr. Nelson was suggesting, so that is covered in the budget.
But with the anticipation, I think a one-time per month meeting, right?
Correct.
Yes. So that was the intention. It's not clear.
Yeah.
But it was a monthly meeting.
What I can commit to is that we will work together to have reference to the budgeted amounts that are part of the zero-based budget process, and any type of measures that will allow us to control costs. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you, Mr. Bento. Anything further? Seeing none, we have a motion that's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Deemed carried. Well, thank you very much for all the hard work on that. That's great. Moving on then to report number 38, the recosted 2020 capital budget. I'll turn things over to Mr. Vanderbilt.
Chair, some of you, if not all of you, may wonder, why are we recosting a budget after we just approved it? And that rationale may come for this particular recosting of the budget and the operating budget as well, and I'll give you strong argumentation to why we've made that choice. For the capital budget in particular, there are three arguments I'd like to put forward that has triggered a recosting exercise. The first is unanticipated spending on the CMHC project. So one of the business cases that we put forward, business case 18, through the most budget process, provided allocation of funding to us as a corporation. We did not think we would incur any costs for the 2020 calendar year. However, it was made clear from the moment that we created the last budget till really essentially now that we would have to move forward on some costs related to energy audit, energy modeling. This is specifically to move us forward in the process of getting a letter of intent between the City of London, CMHC, and LMCH. Roughly $110,000 that we've now budgeted in there. And these are all sole capital that is available at the city level for us to use as an organization. The second argument I'd like to present is that there are increased security concerns that we want to address. And one of the ways that we wanted to address that is that there was a chunk of money unallocated in the last budgeting exercise, roughly $680,000. And we don't want to leave any money on the table, so to speak. And so now we've allocated a significant amount of that money to a line item called contingency, 2020 contingency, that gives us the capability to increase different security features as we wish. And with the onboarding of a new director of asset management, Mrs. Jones, we've are really quite excited to be very targeted with this additional capital. And the last argument I'd like to provide is that we wanted to apply the energy rebates mainly to create efficiencies in our budget. I'm just going to take the opportunity here to speak specifically to the changes that we've made, which you can find on page 34 of your package, but also in Appendix 1. We have reduced the makeup air project for and McNay by roughly $160,000. $60,000 we have put back in for security upgrades, and $100,000 we've put back in for corridor painting. So that kind of nets that change out. And then the $680,000 that was previously unallocated, we've allocated 80 of that to the project manager's contract under the SHAPE project, and then we've allocated roughly $580,000 to 2020 contingency. The last change that you can see in the staff report is the $110,000 that I spoke to earlier, which has now been added into the budget. If we look at page 36, you'll see the difference between what you approved as a board last time on May 21st, and then the recosted budget and the exercise that's in front of you, and you'll see the difference is $790,000. This includes the $680,000 that was previously unallocated, and then $110,000 for energy modeling. And the shift in monies, or the difference in monies, is presented and illustrated in that chart.
Okay, thank you. Questions from Mr. Vanderbilt? Anderson.
Thank you, through you. Is this something that we should expect coming up multiple times, or is this unusual that it's come up again, or just typically with the organization, what should we expect?
Mr. Mayor, great question. This is not necessarily common. However, if there's an opportunity present, which we also will see in the operating budget, then I think as an organization and as a finance team, we have to move on that. With obviously sound argumentation. For the remainder of the year, I do not expect any other changes to come forward through any type of recosting exercise.
Further questions? I just have one related to the contingency then. I'm wondering if you could explain to me the difference then with how we treat or how we categorize unallocated capital versus a contingency. And I'm also wondering if we have, I'm assuming contingencies for all of our capital projects built into the project cost. So what does this contingency reflect then, just unanticipated? Provide me clarity on that.
It's a great question. We have business units, which I see as individual bank accounts in the city that provide us a level of funding. In the last budgeting exercise, a chunk of that funding was simply not allocated. As in, if we did not draw it into our budget, so most likely we're not going to spend it. And through some of the argumentation I mentioned earlier, we did want to spend that and bring it into the budget. Capital planning takes quite some time. And we do not have specific individual projects right now for that contingency bucket. Hence, we've called it contingency, which gives a level of flexibility in spending for the Director of Asset Management, and also provides a level of operational flexibility, so to speak. So one of the challenges that has really come up in our ecosystem right now is security. So we have a lot of money available that can aid the organization in mitigating some of the security concerns. Whatever may come up in the remainder of the year, whether it's security related or otherwise, what can be funded through that bucket. To answer your second question, if I understand the process correctly, which I think I do, each capital project has a level of contingency allocated to the project by itself.
Okay, and it's talking through myself, I guess. Is there any guidelines related to the spending of the contingency then, in terms of dollar thresholds? Like, is it sort of only for projects then that are like $50,000, or it could be like a project that would be $500,000 that could be spent within this, or?
To address the actual question, currently the only guidelines we have is really the procurement policy. So procurement policy states if there's a dollar amount attached to a project, here are the parameters in which we can move forward, including finding additional quotes, releasing an RFP, getting SLT and/or board approval. Right now, I think that's the structure that pertains. And then there's some significant flexibility that the director/SLT has in order to make those purchases, as long as it stays in the budget amount. One other note I'd like to add is, as a joint organization, some of the criticism we've received from the administration and city councils that we do not spend our money. We get dollars and we don't spend them, and that's another reason for the recosting exercise. We really don't want to leave any money on the table. Ms. Challenge has is very confident in her ability to spend these dollars, hopefully this year, and more importantly, our operational model requires.
Great. Okay. Great. Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, then the report includes two motions. Well, one motion with two parts. One is to approve the recosted capital budget. The other is to approve the changes that are outlined in the report. Would someone like to make that motion? Ms. Wilcox, seconder. Mr. Mills. Any further debate, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Great, thank you. Then we'll move on to the operating report. Mr. Van Pelt.
Some of you, if not all of you, no, I'm trying to be funny on it. Thursday afternoon, similar argumentation follows for the operating budget. The corporation put forward several business cases throughout the multi-year budget process. One of those business cases is business case 19, staffing additional security. We were allocated a sum of money, and through a miscalculation on the city's part, they missed, or we missed, $140,000. I have to highlight the efforts by one of our board members, because we would have not found this out otherwise. And so I'm very pleased to say that there are now additional monies that are flowing into our organization. As we went through the recosting exercise, there was another piece to the argumentation, which I want to bring forward now, where we overlooked our waste bins reimbursements. There was one of our finance analysts that said, hey, we're actually not budgeting for this piece, so we're getting some of these monies back. To guide you through the documents, I would like to reference Appendix 1, the recosted operating budget, where you clearly can see delineations between new dollars coming into our organization and then the redistribution of savings we found and then the additional dollars flowing in. So there's $140,000 coming into the organization in our revenue line item, which is the business case 19 appropriation. You'll see various redistributions of the savings and business case 19 subsequently in the different line items, totaling $140,000 in additional costs. And so that's balanced out. That would be my presentation for this time.
Thank you. Questions from Mr. Vanderbilt? I just have one. Given that we've got some concerns with the growing operating deficits that you've been reporting out on, I noticed that we're then reallocating the $140,000 to a various number of projects. I wonder if there's any consideration to using that then to offset some of the deficits that we're looking at.
That's a wonderful point. To the Chair, I'd like to make a larger point.
Yeah.
So we have seen our operating deficit decrease from last month to this month as we're reporting about $150,000, which is excellent. With Ms. Chow's coming on board in our corporation and really taking hold of her part of the budget, I feel confident that the operating deficit will be decreased over time.
Okay.
The City of London provided us with some strict spending parameters when it came to business case 19, which I alluded to at the last board meeting. Since they've changed their stance on this slightly, where any overages due to COVID-19 potentially may be mitigated by surpluses through business case 19. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility in how we want to spend. One of the spending parameters that's new and that is accepted, from what I understand, is additional security costs. And so one of the ways that we've implemented the business case 19 incorporation is to tack it on to the security line item. Hopefully that on itself, and most likely, is going to help decrease the operating deficit. But I wanted to make a larger point to illustrate some of the progress that we've made. And then lastly, on June 15th, we opened for the first time. We collected $39,000 in cash on that day, even with tenants paying a few months ahead. So I'm very optimistic that we'll get a better control on the operating deficit. When we look at the numbers now, including not only the business case 19 appropriation, but the actual influx of business case 19, we're getting to a really, really good spot.
That's great. Thank you. Anything further then? Okay, so the staff recommendation, similar to the capital report, includes a two-part recommendation to approve the recosted operating budget and to approve the changes that are outlined in the staff report. Can I have a mover for that motion? Mr. Milson, seconded by Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. That's great. Well, that brings us to the end of reports and business. Thank you very much. New business and inquiries. Is there anything anyone would like to bring forward? Seeing none, moving on to in-camera matters. I'm not aware of any in-camera matters that have been posted for us. There are minutes from the last meeting. I'm wondering if anyone has any concerns with the minutes? No? Can I have a motion to move? Mr. Nelson, second by Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? They are carried. That's great. All right, that brings us to the end of the meeting. I don't think there's anything further that anyone would like to raise. Mr. Milson.
Mr. Chair, is this a good opportunity? Maybe I should have brought it up at the beginning, is just really talk about July's meeting. If it's going to, if we are going to have a July meeting, so just really about next meeting, I guess, and then maybe have a conversation about what that looks like potentially.
Yeah, so Ms. McKenzie and I were discussing potentially not having a July board meeting, a formal meeting, but actually having a committee of the whole meeting, which I think I've mentioned to many of you as well. I envision that as being a lot less formal than this, kind of almost like a workshop style where we can discuss a few items. I know we've wanted to have some discussions about our work plan, for example. I think there was some discussions from the last meeting about some of the financial reporting and some of the projection reports and monitoring reports. I think that would be a good conversation to have. Ms. McKenzie said there's a couple other items that administration is looking at bringing forward as well. So that's what we're looking at then for the July meeting, unless there's any concern from the members. The committee would then report through for the next meeting. Given that we're a small board for having the individual committees that are outlined in the terms of reference, I think this would be kind of helpful for us.
That's great. I think that's a great idea, and I just didn't know that we formally had to say there would be no meeting in July, but the third Thursday in August would be our next meeting kind of thing. That would be great.
Okay. So I guess for Ms. Anderson.
And the approach that committee will still be open to the public and.
Yeah. Correct. Exactly. Formal but informal meeting, we'll call it, yes. That's right. All right, yeah, so our next formal board meeting then would be the August meeting, but we'll convene in July then and look forward to those discussions. Anything further? Seeing none, could I get have a motion to adjourn then? Ms. Anderson, seconded by Ms. Wilcox. Any discussion on that? I don't think there's any. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Super efficient. So impressive.
And how do we make
I think
this?
you just close it up. Thank you, Kara.
Appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
Have